In this lesson, we'll explore various ways of translating or moving geometry within Mastercam. To start, we're going to use a different sample file to explore the disassemble function. I'll open up this file called disassemble, and you'll notice that it's in inches, and it happens to be what we call an Adirondack chair. And I also notice in the levels manager that we have a couple dozen different levels here, but they only go up to level 44. On the toolpaths manager, we have no toolpath selected, and in the solids manager, you'll see we have many solids here. Under model prep, we have a function called disassemble, and what this will do is it will take all the solid bodies in your model and lay them out flat. The prompt says to select solid bodies. You can control to select a single body or window select. You can also hit Control A, which is to select all. And let me just zoom out a little bit. You'll notice that what it does is it lays everything out flat. And you'll see by the automatic placement here, it's going in the positive X direction. We, of course, can change that to positive Y or any other direction we want. We can add the spacing. Let's just say we wanted 2 inches in between each one. We can also tell it to move the geometry to a new level, and in this case we're going to start at level 1000, and we're going to increment the level based on the solid body. So each solid will be on its own level. When I'm done, I'll click OK, and you'll see now that the various solid parts are laid out flat. And if we go to the levels manager, starting at level 1000, we see our first level with the geometry in it, and then from there incrementing up to level 26. You'll also notice that the solids disassemble function actually lays them out in a reasonable orientation with the larger surface area on the bottom. So if we spin this part around, you'll see that the bottom is flat. All of these bottoms are as flat as possible. The top pieces are the ones that have the features in them, because obviously we'd be machining these features from the top. So that's how solids disassemble work. Let's go back to our original file we were using. And we can explore some other translate features. On the Transform tab within Mastercam, you'll see that we have many options under the Position group, including Dynamic, Translate, Rotate, and Project. Let's take a look at Dynamic, but before we do that, I'm going to turn on level 10 as a visible level, because it'll be easier to move this chain guard if we can see it in relation to another item. So I'm going to select on Dynamic, and the first thing it wants to know is which entities to move. So I'm going to select this solid, and then hit End Selection. Now you'll notice I can place my gnomon anywhere, and the prompt here says Pick Gnomon Origin Position. I have a 2-dimensional gnomon, which means I can move it in X and in Y, not in Z. And the reason is because my construction mode is set to 2D. I'm going to temporarily make it to 3D, but in the end of this lesson we're not going to save this file because we're moving this just as a few examples. So now that my gnomon is set to 3D, I can place my gnomon anywhere. For example, right in the center of the circle. So now that my gnomon is placed here, I can move the gnomon along the Z-axis, along the Y-axis, and along the X-axis. I can also rotate it about any of these. And of course, in this tool, we have the ability to do a move or a copy, and we can also tell it how many instances we want. I'm going to hit cancel again and go back into the dynamic transform function. I'll select the part I want to move, and I'm going to place the gnomon. Now let's just say, for example, that we want to line up this hole with this hole. Well, what I can do is simply place this gnomon right there, And now, you'll notice, I can grab the gnomon and move the whole thing around. So for example, I can snap to geometry like that. And now that it's there, I can drag it up and drag it down. Now let's say that once it's located here, I want to move this down so it's flush with this face here. Well, I can now move this gnomon if I wanted to, but by moving the gnomon without moving the part, I use this switch here, which will now allow me to just move the gnomon. I'm going to move the gnomon right to one of the bottom points here. Now I'm done moving the gnomon. I'll go back to moving geometry. And here's where it's very useful because I can select the Z-axis here. And even though I can slide off of the part, I can snap to geometry. And notice what it does here. It snaps right to the Z location that I picked. And then we click OK, and the part was translated. The Translate tab is similar, how I can select the geometry and hit End Selection, but now the Translate tool is simply an X, Y, or Z motion. So I can drag this over here, and as you can see, copy is turned on, so it's going to create a copy of it. Since this field right here is set to -348, I can type in -350 exactly, hit enter, and then place it right there. Similar to how Translate only moves things linearly, Rotate only moves things rotationally. So now I can rotate this based on this gnomon, but if you notice, it rotates it based on the current location of it. Let me hit escape, go back up here, and I'm going to move this gnomon over to here. Now I'm going to rotate around at this point. And again, if we do a move instead of a copy, it will move that geometry. In this example, Dynamic is probably one of the most useful tools as it includes both Translate and Rotate into one. As you can see from the gnomon that it creates, it's very, very powerful to move your part around.